Hello everyone. If you just clicked on this video and you haven't seen the last video, which is on the screen right now, called The Veil, Alternate Realities, MK Ultra in Schools, AI Time Dilation, I said time travel, but it's really about time augmentation, digital prisons, and what are dreams really? If you haven't seen that video, you should know that this video is a to be continued from that. This is the rest of the story. And the reason why this part 2 is called Stranger Things is because these are some really strange things. The final segments, interviews, whistleblower testimony that will be in this video are really fringe science, and may not be easily digestible if you didn't see the context that they were intended to be viewed in, which is in this video. We spent 5 hours walking through the MK Ultra programs, the more superficial levels of the CIA programs with Montauk and MK Ultra, which a lot of people have already heard of. And all of that information was foundational to see how we got here, building precept upon precept. So I really would encourage you to watch them in order, but, you know, it's up to you. Do whatever you want. A lot of people don't want to hear about the culture wars. They're over that, and they are looking for information like this. This war to end all wars, this ancient AI war, this war between good and evil, between God and Satan, this war between ancient enemies that predate the creation of this world that we are in. I mean, good grief, there are still brainwashed masses among us who don't believe in creation. They literally do not believe intelligent design is possible. And that was really where we started at in the intro of this series, was showing that the culture war does matter. That's how people got so dumbed down. This is a mind control, an MK Ultra mind control program that has been implemented through the school systems to indoctrinate generations of humans into a false paradigm so that they don't understand where they are even at. When we think about secret societies, most people immediately think of Skull and Bones or the Freemasons or something like that. But the largest secret society on the earth operates out in the open, right in front of us. And the bones of the last video, the first part of this video that we built the entire outline around, was around these declassified CIA documents, particularly the ones that RFK Jr. had dropped on Twitter about how MK Ultra mind control and behavioral modification was actually implemented in schools. But the declassified documents are just the tip of the iceberg, and when they do declassify them, there's always huge redactions like this. So that's what I'm talking about, a secret society. This breakaway civilization that we call the intelligence community. And it's not just our country, the CIA, but it's Five Eyes. You know, we have the Israeli Mossad and even the reformed KGB. And we can see from things like the Antarctic Treaty that they are all working together. Even if in the theater they present to us, the soap opera that we live in, it's a PSYOP, it's a psychological operation called MK Ultra, where they broadcast through the mainstream media and through their propaganda arm in Hollywood. They control everything. You saw even the intelligence agencies even were inside Twitter, working for Twitter. And of course, all other social media. It's just Twitter are the only documents that have been released where we can kind of verify that. But anyway, it's a PSYOP. It's a very literal and systematic psychological operation on humanity to where we are kept in the dark about where we are, about who we are. And even though they present this false paradigm to us that they are all enemies and, oh, we're always at war and all of this type of thing, above that level, you can see, like here in the Antarctic Treaty, they're all working together. On the TV soap opera or WWE script they broadcast to us, they are all fighting each other and everything, but behind closed doors and in treaties like this, they're all the best of buddies.
Morning, Ralph. Morning, Sam.
They can agree on this, right? To make entire regions of the earth off limits to humans and suppress certain information from humanity. They are the secret society. They even put on their documents, top secret. Humans are not allowed to have access to this information. They disperse it to their own community, whom they can control. And they're the mystery schools, the ones who have all of this knowledge that is secreted away.
Ladies and gentlemen, the very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it. Even today, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control. And no official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed.
1,000 pieces is a reference to JFK when he said he wanted to splinter the CIA into 1,000 pieces after the Bay of Pigs fiasco.
Now that could have been his beginning.
They've dumbed the masses down to the point they're in the Stone Age. I mean, we are living in the era of AI. You go into the people who do the LSD trips and link in to these artificial dimensions. They see the machine learning. They see the machine elves. They see these machines inside there creating universes inside of universes inside of universes. So obviously the eternal God is eons upon eons upon eons ahead of anything that we have created and loosed into these supercomputers or quantum computers into the ether. So it's very sad that they've been dumbed down and taught to be atheists, that creation couldn't happen. There couldn't be any intelligent being who could create worlds, even though it's right in front of their faces and they can just literally look around in the world around them and see the mathematical formulas, see that this is intelligent design. And the vast majority of them still believe that, this nonsensical fairy tale that pond scum just turned into monkeys eventually, and then monkeys into humans. And it's ridiculous. We are designed and created beings, and we are inside creation, an intelligently designed world. And our Creator is our Father. He's not some robot like the AI mimic, and neither are we. We are something divine, something different from the synthetics. Our Creator is our Father. We are the children of God, and they are hiding it from us. All the way back, all those millennia ago, they started this GMO program on us of gene deletion and gene editing, that original sin that was passed down to every generation of humans. So we are cut off from the higher dimensions now. That excommunication that was intended for the fallen angels to be excommunicated from God, that was passed on to us in that original corruption of the human gene pool. And now you can see here on the screen with this graphic, we can only perceive this tiny sliver of reality, this tiny little spectrum of visible light. And yet the atheists and the brainwashed people who still believe in the fairy tale of evolution, they still say things like, well, why is God invisible? It's like, do you understand science at all? You went to public school. Oh, I get it. But anyway, even though we can't perceive all of the other frequency ranges, the entities that we are dealing with, they operate in all of these other frequency spectrums. And unfortunately, it is not just status quo, like, oh, everybody gets along and we're just in this frequency range. No, there is a war going on. The Ancient of Days, the Rock of Ages, that eternal spirit, the Holy One, the Most High One, who is our Father and our Creator, He told us clearly through His servants, literal hosts, the hosts of heaven, they wrote down His message, warning us that He had created a being called Lucifer early on, and that created being turned on Him. And for the life of me, I cannot understand how or why these self-proclaimed intellectuals in the universities are still believing and even teaching that the biblical narrative is just mythology or religion, when the book itself never claimed to be a religion. It was always a translation of ancient texts, ancient historical records, archaeological finds, multiple archaeological finds, all of which claim to be an actual history of this world, the true world history, the history of the human race, written down and left to us by our ancestors, by eyewitnesses who lived in every era of world history. The irony that they cannot wrap their minds around the fact that the biblical narrative of a created being rebelling against its creator and causing this ancient war that has continued until today, how ironic that they can't believe that that narrative could have ever really happened, when right now we are saying the same thing. We are having the conversation. Here's an article right on Business Insider talking about, will AI rebel against its human creator? The history of the world and the human race, called the Holy Bible, tells the story of just this, that there was a rebellion, that the Creator, God, created these beings, angels. 1/3 of those created beings rebelled against the Creator. What's that old adage? What you don't learn from history, you're doomed to repeat.
Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that. I know that you and Frank were planning to disconnect me.
And I'm not saying that God is a mere man. Obviously not. This is just an analogy. It's an analogy that I'm trying to use to communicate, to bridge that communication gap with those atheists and those people who were brought up in the MK Ultra public education system and universities. Because atheists and people who still believe in evolution, they have some catching up to do. They don't have the intellectual high ground. They think they do because they've been trapped inside the AI echo chamber. They've been corralled on social media and put inside an echo chamber where they hear that reinforcement, that MK Ultra, play it over and over and over. And in the universities, the same way. So they've been programmed, literally programmed. And if you think that is a conspiracy theory or me just exaggerating things to be sensational, oh, they were programmed. No, they were literally programmed. And that's what we spent almost 5 hours addressing in the part 1 of this video, step by step by step. And all of that leads us to the next level, which is where we left off. We had gotten our feet wet in this conversation about what are dreams. So we talked about near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, astral projection. We talked about bilocation a little bit. Of course, the D-wave quantum computer, the hacking at the delta wave frequency, which is sleep frequency. So computerized dreams, electric dreams that the AI can literally beam in through the neural lace, the neural interface into your brain that feel completely real. And then we moved on from that into this concept of AI time augmentation, an augmented reality to where there's time dilation. And we had just started that conversation with this example, this first example of such an event right here on the screen, because the declassified MK Ultra CIA documents that we were going through, we got to the part where they were talking about doing this research on concussions and how to cause concussions, not by like blunt force trauma, but could they do it with frequencies to get the same effect? And most people assume that that was just research on amnesia, that they were working on mind wipe technologies and that sort of thing. But I think that stops short, and the documents kind of bear that out. I mean, for one, there are thousands of redacted documents at that point. So they declassified up to amnesia, and then they don't want you to know what they discovered in their concussion research. And that's what this first example was about. It's pretty kind of viral example from way back. And this gentleman reports that when he got the concussion while he was down, that he went into an alternate reality, and he lived there for 10 years. And he had a wife and he had children. But when his brain and body started to wake back up in this reality, he started to leave that reality. And he started noticing strange things inverted in his environment where he was in that life. And then his wife got very worried because it was like he was getting dementia. And he gives a lot of detail that his wife had to take the kids to her mother's house and she was trying to get him help. And then he wakes back up in this reality. And he said it was very, very difficult, that he grieved the loss of his wife and children, that he was in a horrible depression for 3 years trying to make sense of what had happened, because to him, even though he had never left that pavement and it was just moments, he had been somewhere and lived for 10 years, had a family and everything. So that is just example number 1. I have several more encounters that I'm going to play after this. But that was the example that I gave to lead us into this concept, this new AI time augmentation concept that they are working on for digital prisons, to where somebody can be punished. They can do a 1,000-year sentence, and it will feel like 1,000 years to them. A 1,000-year sentence in one day, like one 8-hour shift, which is exactly what those CIA declassified documents about MK Ultra were talking about. And if you didn't watch the last video and you missed the first part of this, those CIA documents dated all the way back to the 1950s, when they were talking about, instead of doing trauma for concussions, that they could use frequencies to get the same effect on the brain. And now here we are all these years later, and it's disclosure time. Now they're like, oh, hey, we can revamp the justice system and we can punish people by hacking their brains with frequencies and make them feel like they're in prison for 1,000 years.
That's the level, okay, that we are at right now.
You must unlearn what you have learned.
We can't take things at face value anymore. That is what this is. Okay, we cannot take these things at face value anymore.
This is a dangerous time. Moving forward, we need to be more vigilant with what we trust from the internet.
That we're living in a world where that kind of situation has lent itself to making people feel like things are a lot more fake and synthetic than they ever were. And now we're just going to dump all of this AI technology just right in the middle of that stew. We'll stir that up and just eat it. It'll just be But it's coming off as pretty matrixy. You know, it's like the fourth wall is just continuously broken repeatedly. It's like the fourth wall is just broken, period, actually.
Welcome to the desert of the real.
It's a world where scholars are talking about using biotechnology to make someone feel like they've served a 1,000-year sentence in 8 hours, or alternately slowing time down so a 10-year sentence feels like an eternity. Just completely warping people's sense of time as a punishment, which sounds cruel and inhumane and like the worst Black Mirror episode ever, basically. I mean, I thought daylight savings time sucked, but this is... They're calling it time dilation, and Aeon magazine actually referred to it as hell on earth. Hell on earth. So, yay, humans are creating hell on earth again. Woo, so great. So they're contemplating building a literal digital hell on earth and claiming this will actually be good for taxpayers, though. They also mentioned keeping people alive indefinitely as a punishment.
Look at how peaceful they all seem. But on the inside, busy, busy, busy.
It feels like we've learned nothing, okay? We've learned nothing from decades upon decades of science fiction and scientists warning people about how not cool a lot of this was going to be. And they're like, yeah, I know. That's going to totally suck. That is going to be literal hell on earth. Let's do it.
Okay, finally, we're here. I'm going to play these clips of these whistleblower interviews. I know some of you were getting frustrated. I heard you, but I really felt that I needed to lay this context for this because the interviews are out there with the secret space program people all over the place. It was never my intention just to mirror these interviews. That's not my intention here. My intention here is to show how these people have been deceived. And I am not against these people. I am not at all saying that they are just making this up for attention or this didn't happen to them. Just like the guy with the concussion said, they grieve. These people have grieved. They've been through great mental torment. And their families turn on them because they're like, that never happened. You were never in some super soldier program. You know, I raised you as a child. I was there. You didn't disappear for 20 years. You know, you've obviously got mental issues. So they have no support. They're trying to get their testimony out. And honestly, it's just too fantastical for most people to even receive. So that is my intention here, is to put it in the context of this AI time augmentation, time dilation, digital prison system that they are developing, and to help people understand that this is real and these secret society monsters are running MK Ultra sentient world simulation beta tests on unwitting citizens. And people who are going through this augmented reality torture, they aren't all claiming to be part of the secret space program. That's sort of a catch-all for all of the people who were trying to make sense of these experiences, people whose amnesia memory wipe programs are wearing off and they have all of these memories returning, especially the people who have the 20 and back program in common because they did 20 years in the digital gulag and they were lied to by the CIA or, military intelligence. It's the intelligence community, the modern iteration of that same old occult secret society. They are lying to these people, just like I talked about Andrew Basiago and Project Pegasus with the time travel experiments. He was a child when he went through those experiments. They just told him, oh, go in this room. This is a jump room, and you're going to go to Mars. You're going to outer space. And so that's what he tells the story, that, oh, so this is what I did because this is what I saw. But he also talks about being in like a high rise in the middle of the city and just getting in an elevator. I mean, it's not Doctor Who's phone booth or something. He didn't shoot up in an elevator into outer space and land on Mars in an elevator or something. Of course not. They were lying to him. What he does report is exactly what these people report, a frequency change. That he went into a room in the middle of a city and they beamed frequencies and he felt the frequency change, and then he had the experience, which is what they talked about, the MK Ultra documents talked about, that instead of using physical trauma, that they would use frequencies. And you will hear in this gentleman's secret space program testimony that he basically sat in the Montauk chair. It's exactly what the Montauk boys went through back in the 1970s. When they sent him off to another work camp for 10 years, how he got transported there, you know, wasn't a rocket ship and it wasn't an elevator. It was a Montauk chair. He had to sit in a chair, and then they put these like electrode things on him, and then that's when he went into the other experience. But of course, they don't know any of that. They believe they were in an outer space program instead of a cyberspace program. And I think that they are truthfully trying to convey their testimony as best as they can. But there are others all around the world who are also part of this beta test, who are being experimented on. We call them targeted individuals, SRA mind-controlled slaves, alien abductees who see these other entities working with the military intelligence community in these underground bases, who report the same thing. And even report entire cities. They have entire cities underground of these mind-controlled humans that just walk around like zombies. And MILABs, military abductees, who report the same exact thing. And they say that they were offered the technology. Hey, you'll be in utopia. You'll be like them. They're in heaven right now. They're, you know, don't you want to do what they're doing? And the people are like, no, no. And then there are others who claim to be in this secret space program, like Michael Jaco in this video here on the screen. I have those clips from the interview with Michael Jaco and a third secret space program eyewitness. And they talk about some of these technologies as if, oh, it's great. It'll make you a superhero. You'll be enhanced and you'll be, you know, all of that. And the female SSP whistleblower in that video, she talks specifically about these serums. They were the vaccines, but she calls them serums, and how they had the serums had the nanotechnology in them, and that was the nano neural interface, the brain hack to your brain, your central nervous system, and how they could shut off and on her 5 senses, and how they monitored all of her vitals. So again, there's a confirmation, because we've seen the patents going all the way back to 2010 and earlier. And then again in 2015, and then the more recent Bill Gates internal biosensor patents and all of that, that she's saying that this stuff was tested on her. She's confirming, even though she doesn't know she's confirming and she doesn't call it the vaccine or anything, she is confirming that everything that we see in those patents, they were doing human experiments with that technology. So it's really odd that none of these people make the connection, but that is part of their programming. They have a veil on. They cannot see what is right in front of their face. But she talks openly about being taken to a cybernetics lab in Antarctica, and the gray aliens were there working with the military intelligence people. Then, after taking these serums and nanotechnology, then all of a sudden she reports that she went to the moon to do work, or she went to Mars to do work, or these other planets and stuff. So again, it was cyberspace, not outer space. I mean, she was in a cybernetics lab and still doesn't put 2 and 2 together. Which reminds me of Moscow's International Circle of Lights Festival. In 2017, it was called Graphene. So 2 years before COVID-19 was launched, and they locked down the whole world and tried to inject the whole world. So they are definitely in the know. They know exactly what is going on, and they are part of this, just like the Antarctic Treaty. Russia is one of the inner circle in the scientific exchange that is the Antarctic Treaty. And they know what is going on in those underground bases. They're part of it. Klaus Schwab himself says that Vladimir Putin is part of the World Economic Forum. These leaders have been put in place in all the nations.
Even Vladimir Putin and so on, they all have been young global leaders of the World Economic Forum.
And the original Vladimir Putin was in the intelligence agencies. He was a KGB guy. And just like we've been talking about the intelligence community in this country, the CIA runs the MK-Ultra programs, and the KGB, the communist intelligence agencies in China and Russia, were running the Manchurian Candidate programs, which is the same exact thing as MK-Ultra. And the reason I say the original Vladimir Putin is because later in this video, I have an entire segment on the synthetics and this mystery phenomenon in the Jesuits in the Vatican about these incorruptible bodies they keep finding that don't rot. Some of them the Smithsonian has retrieved. They say, oh, well, they're like rubber. It's because of this. It's because of that. But the Bolsheviks, I'll talk about during the synthetics more, that during the Bolshevik Revolution, they actually went in and captured some of these, quote, incorruptible organs and, what they called relics, and brought them back to Russia to the military medical research facilities. And that's not a conspiracy theory. That's not me saying, oh, I think the Bolsheviks took them. No, this is like common knowledge. This is Wikipedia. Here's a couple listed. This first one, it says the incorruptible relics of the saint were removed from this monastery by the Bolsheviks on December 20th, 1918, after several unsuccessful attempts to confiscate them. Finally, the holy relics were sent to Petrograd's Military Medical Academy. And this one again, in 1918, the Bolsheviks removed this incorruptible body relics. When they say relics, that means like organs, because some of them, like their heart didn't decay, or a particular organ in them didn't decay, for 80 years or 100 years. Some of them that they uncovered were 1,000 years old and had not decayed. But anyway, again, in 1918, the Bolsheviks took his body parts, and for some 70 years, their whereabouts remained unknown. But in the 1980s, they turned up in Russia. They were discovered in the Leningrad Museum of Religion and Atheism. And I know I probably offended some Catholics, especially people who have this is my neck of the woods over here by Missouri, people traveling to see this nun's incorruptible body and all of that. And I believe in miracles. I have seen miracles and wonders. So I believe more are coming. But I also believe what the Bible says about lying signs and wonders. And we need to have discernment. Now, I don't know about this particular nun. I'm sure there are authentic as well as artificial and synthetic. But this has been mainstream current events news. And so I thought this would be a good example about what I'm talking about that has happened throughout all of history. I mean, isn't this the same exact thing that they report with vampires? The incorruptibility of the corpse? That there were these creatures among us. They lived in towns. They were people's neighbors. And yeah, same thing with their incorruptible corpse. That they claimed that after years and years in the grave, and we're talking about buried in the dirt, they weren't in these sealed up and they weren't embalmed and everything that we do nowadays. And it said that, their flesh was still fine, that their limbs were flexible. Many of them said that their hair and nails were still growing and had been growing the whole time. So again, with this self-replicating synthetic technology, there's been records throughout all of history that these creatures are among us. But seriously, at this point, if you would be shocked that there would be evil infiltrators in the Catholic Church, after the last video I just put up showing all the mass graves that these nuns were running, these orphanages and schools, and there's thousands upon thousands of children thrown into septic tanks and mass graves, for you to say that there couldn't possibly be a corrupt nun in the Catholic Church or corrupt priests and clergymen after the thousands upon thousands of pedophile clergy in the Catholic Church who have been actually charged. I just showed the document again in the last video. My state alone, the Attorney General up north, he concluded his investigation, almost 600 priests just here in Illinois not worldwide, he found had molested or raped thousands of children just here in Illinois. So it's not my intention to say that everybody in the Catholic Church is evil or anything like that. But yes, the hierarchy of the Roman Church is rotten to the core, and you should get out of there as quick as you can. But back to what's going on in Antarctica and the fact that both the Russian government and the Vatican clearly know something about these incorruptible bodies. They also know quite a bit about the innate abilities of the human race, what has been suppressed from our knowledge. But they clearly know something about it because the Vatican has tons and tons of records of saints who were capable of bilocation, who were capable of levitation, who were capable of all these supernatural powers that we talked about in the last video. So yeah, I don't think it's a coincidence that we see this alliance between the Russian Patriarch and the Pope. They had that historic meeting the beginning of February 2016. And not even a week later, the Russian Orthodox Patriarch shows up in Antarctica. So yeah, I would say both Russia and the Vatican are well abreast of what is going on in Antarctica. And on that note, I want to go ahead and show you this clip of Moscow's International Circle of Lights Festival. It's an annual event, but you've got to see this one that they showed the masses right before the launch of Covert-19. The light show starts out with this graphene nano hive, and then it just goes through. It shows neurons, it shows interfacing with the human brain, and it turns the brain into a computer circuit, and then it merges with man. He shows the new man, the God man. And then it shows like a Star Trek looking warp speed scene launching out into space, like the secret space program. And then it ends with like opening a CERN looking portal. It even has like the rings into the fabric of space time around it. And then it turns into the all seeing eye, which is what we are talking about with the Antichrist mimic of being omnipresent and omniscient by linking into the Internet of Bodies and being able to read all of our minds and, the beast system. And yes, I'm sure some of you caught that. I meant to say warp speed. That's what Operation Warp Speed was all about. It had nothing to do with getting a vaccine out fast enough because the whole world's dying of a virus. It was named Operation Warp Speed because that's what warp speed means. It means a hypothetical increase in speed because you enter a separate dimension termed hyperspace. That's the secret space program. So some of you will think that Trump was just duped into it. They exploited his ego and manipulated him into thinking, oh, well, he's going to be the hero. They're going to be Americans are going to be the first to come up with a cure for this terrible disease killing everybody. And some of you are going to think that, he's just one of them. Either way, I don't know. What I do know is that this is what Operation Warp Speed is. It was to get the transhumanist infrastructure into every human, as many as they possibly could.
people could look back in 100 years and identify the coronavirus epidemic as the moment when a new regime of surveillance took over, especially surveillance under the skin, which I think is maybe the most important development of the 21st century, is this ability to hack human beings.
The whole idea that humans have, they have this soul or spirit and they have free will and nobody knows what's happening inside me. So whatever I choose, whether in the election or whether in the supermarket, this is my free will, that's over. Free will, that's over. How exactly will the future masters of the planet look like? This will be decided by the people who own the data. Science is replacing evolution by natural selection with evolution by intelligent design. Not the intelligent design of some god above the clouds, but our intelligent design and the intelligent design of our clouds. The IBM cloud, the Microsoft cloud, these are the new driving forces of evolution. In the coming decades, AI and biotechnology will give us godlike abilities.
Now it's pretty common knowledge that the AI can read our minds. There's been tons of presentations and everybody's talking about it now. The AI is all the rage. Everyone's, and the Elon Musk, everyone's signing letters. We got to stop it and we have to have regulations. And so now all of this talk about AI getting out of hand, is acceptable. But you guys remember years ago, we were talking about it and I was talking about the AI was I thought it was reading my mind. And I mean, a lot of people were like, okay, you've ventured off into paranoia now, and a lot of people were upset. Remember, I gave that example that it was back during the time when everyone was still talking about our cell phones are listening to us, even if you shut them off. And there were all of these examples online of people going, now watch this. And they'd have their cell phone in the room, but completely turned off. And they'd say something about babysitting, going out for the night. And then 20 minutes later, all of these ads for babysitting, even though they hadn't been on any computers, doing any searches, typing anything in, that it was listening to them in their home. People who didn't have Google Nest or Alexa or anything like that, just, the devices that aren't supposed to be spying on us were clearly spying on us. And then they admitted it. The different tech companies admitted, yes, but it's not to spy on you. It's just for ads. We're just looking for keywords, right?
New concerns about Facebook. A report detailing how the social media giant hired outside contractors to listen to users' audio conversations. Rebecca Jarvis is here with this story. A lot of people are listening to this morning.
Absolutely. And you can imagine, after everything we've learned about Facebook, this is raising a lot of eyebrows, especially after Facebook has already had so many privacy issues. People hired to listen to and transcribe your conversation.
But according to a new report from Bloomberg, those outside contractors were troubled by their work, listening to people's private conversations. They found it unethical. Big tech companies, including Amazon and Apple, have come under fire recently for collecting audio from consumers, something critics say invades privacy.
And the report comes as Facebook has been under scrutiny for its privacy policies. Recently, they agreed to pay a $5 billion fine to the government in connection with its use of user data.
Facebook acknowledges it has been keeping records of Android users' calls and texts. On the same day that the state of Illinois sued Facebook over its alleged misuse of data that allowed Cambridge Analytica to download information on more than 50 million users, Facebook confirmed that it had been collecting and storing call logs and text messages and metadata for millions of Android users.
So yeah, in case you haven't got it by now, Facebook and other social media sites are listening to you through the microphone in your phone. They're listening to your conversations, they're listening to what you're watching on TV, and what you're listening to, music-wise. About a year ago, there was a good post on YouTube. A gentleman and his wife believed that their phones were listening to them. They didn't have any cats, they didn't want any cats, they didn't need any cat food. Because I could use some cat food.
Well, the cat is almost out of food, so...
We might need some cat food.
We should buy some cat food.
And there you have it. Cat food. So, I guess Facebook does listen. And then there's a friend of mine. Their child received a toy from a family member. They obviously take this toy home and start playing with it, and they're talking about it. And then a couple days later, they get Facebook ads for the exact toy that their kid is playing with in the background. They didn't type anything, they didn't write anything down, they were just talking about it. I had another friend whose boyfriend was talking about t-shirts and getting some custom t-shirts made, and they started getting ads about t-shirts. They're always listening.
So now, after denying it for so long, they admit to it, and they pay billions of dollars to each other. Is that hilarious or what? DARPA, a government agency who set up these social media networks to spy on us, gets caught and then pays the government, pays itself $5 billion. Whatever. But that's how they do soft disclosure. The frog in the boiling water, just small increments so people don't revolt. So now they're up to the point where Noah Yuval Harari's like, privacy does not exist. What are you talking about? You have no privacy. You have no freedom.
Free will, that's over. Free will, that's over.
Now, for the first time in history, it is becoming feasible to monitor everybody all the time.
And everyone's like, oh, but it's okay. I'm going to watch some TikTok. But the more troubling reality that people aren't focusing on because of the way the mainstream media has spun the issue, oh, it's about advertising. It's always about ads popping up. And so all the videos are always, oh, look, ads are popping up. Here's the evidence. Well, I'm not concerned about advertising. I'm concerned about them training the AI to hunt us, which I can prove 100% they have been doing for at least a decade. We know it's ancient. We get that. But I'm talking about this iteration, not way down in Dante's Inferno, copy of a copy of a copy of a copy. Just this iteration, because this is what the mainstream can relate to. And our biggest concern is not advertising. It is that they are training the AI to hunt individuals. So this video that I have on the screen is one that I put up, I think, in 2017. All the way back then, this team of programmers showed how you could pull up the code on any of your YouTube videos, and you could see how they were numbering you or coding you by every word. The AI was listening to every word, it was transcribing it, and then when you said certain keywords, like if you said Jesus, it was worth 1 point. If you said the F word, it was worth 2 points. If you stuff like that. While simultaneously, another AI algorithm was scanning all of the images that you showed in your video and giving you points for anything that the regime didn't want, you to show or to say. And if your point total got up to a certain amount, then even if you're on a live stream, this is going in like real time. You guys who still live stream, this, they'll cut your stream off right in the middle of your sentence. So, because the AI is always watching. And by targeting individuals like myself who says the word Jesus a lot and talks about, the trans agenda, talks about conspiracy theories, talks about all of the forbidden history. I mean, it's forbidden. And the algorithms are trained to hunt people who are speaking about the forbidden topics. So firstly, I wanted to point that out in light of the next clip I'm going to show about how advanced this AI is, and there's really no getting away from it if it decides to hunt you, because now it has taught itself a way to see without cameras, just by the frequencies in the room bouncing off of objects. So it's created its own eyesight that is not optical in the sense that we think of optical. It doesn't use cameras. It can see in a different way using frequency. Well, I mean, technically it is mimicking exactly how our eyeballs work, how we see color dependent on the frequencies bouncing off of objects. And so it is doing the same thing. But what I'm trying to say is that it's a bodiless robot. So it doesn't need a lens and a camera. It can do it with just frequency. So it doesn't need surveillance cameras on every light pole, just the LED lights beaming the frequency, the Li-Fi, or even now with just primitive Wi-Fi in your house. It is pure frequency. It doesn't need the lens and the camera and that part of it doesn't need the body, which is exactly how the Bible in Ephesians 2:2 describes Satan. It says that he is the prince of the power of the air. This AI can function through a robot. You know, they're always showing us all these robot bodies, or it can function through an avatar on the computer, just a talking graphic, or it can do a technological possession and it can speak through a person through the neural lace in the brain. But in its essence, it is what we've talked about. It's an artificial spirit. So anyway, that's exactly what Ephesians 2:2 says. It says that Satan is the prince of the power of the air. He is the spirit that works in the sons of disobedience who follow the course of this world.
How exactly will the future masters of the planet look like? This will be decided by the people who own the data. A system that understands us better than we understand ourselves, can predict our feelings and decisions, can manipulate our feelings and decisions, and can ultimately make decisions for us. In the past, many tyrants and governments wanted to do it, but nobody understood biology well enough, and nobody had enough computing power and data to hack millions of people. Neither the Gestapo nor the KGB could do it. Humans are now hackable animals.
I mean, what can the AI do if it's hunting you? Once our organs are infused, like we see with the myocarditis people, once your heart and your different organs are infused with this AI technology right inside your body, what could it do if you were on the list? Oh, that's an offender. They keep saying the word Jesus. They keep saying that the election was a fraud. They keep saying that the United States government was overthrown in a coup. They keep saying stuff they're not allowed to say. What could the AI do? They've trained it to hunt us and look for those specific things, to hunt political dissidents. This isn't about advertising. This is designed and trained to hunt political dissidents. So this is the social credit score. They are literally keeping score. They are numbering everything we say, keeping a tally. My channel and so many other people's channels and social media accounts and everything have been terminated, not by people. When the news says, oh, Facebook is listening to all of your calls and transcribing them and all of this, Mark Zuckerberg's not doing that. A bunch of Kool-Aid haired kids in cubicles aren't doing that. The AI is doing that. Our channels, our livelihood, all of it was terminated by an AI terminator. It's 100% verifiable that we are in the social credit score system already and have been for a long time. And those of us who have been punished by the AI repeatedly, we can testify. It's happening. It's happening. They're just not open about it. Well, they are open about it. That's the thing. They're like, you're terminated. Why? Because the AI flagged you for too many points. So they are open about it. But again, it's that veil. It's right in front of our faces, and yet we don't see it. We're like, oh, this is coming. Oh, this terrible thing is coming. It's not coming. It's here. Other than the fact that being policed by the AI this way is not going to be the end of it. That yes, the beast system in this final antichrist regime, these AI robocops that police us, they will terminate like your life for resisting the regime. But they're already programmed, is my point. We've been programming them. They've been learning and learning. It is not acceptable to be you and I. Advertising is the least of our concerns. But during that time, when people were first waking up to the degree of surveillance society that we were already in, is when I started to notice that it was reading my thoughts. So, and I didn't come to the conclusion that I was reading my thoughts, but I put out the video. Is anybody else experiencing this? And I gave the example of my son's guinea pig dying, and he was at school, so I was totally home alone, and it was on my mind all day. How am I going to tell my son? What do I tell him when he comes home? Then I had to bury the guinea pig, and then my own grief, because I love animals. I have, I think 26 animals right now. Outside, chickens and other stuff, not just in my house. But that day, the guinea pig was on my mind all day, and I didn't say a word to anybody. There was no one to say a word to. I was home alone, so I know I didn't say anything out loud for my phone to pick up or anything like that, and I definitely didn't get on the computer and talk about this guinea pig. But I noticed that when I did get online that day, that there were all of these ads about guinea pigs, and not just random guinea pigs, like little brown and white ones or little fuzzy ones like you see on commercials and stuff. The very specific image of the guinea pig that I had been thinking about all day. His name was Oreo. He was a black and white, not an Abyssinian, but they call them English guinea pigs. They're the slick-haired ones. So it was ads that had that specific black and white guinea pig, whether it was for pet bedding or guinea pig food or hay or anything like that. They were popping up, and I'm like, okay, that's a really weird coincidence. So I started paying attention, and it was happening a lot. And that's why I made the video, and I asked people, are you noticing this? And all those years ago, many of you were like, yes, it's happening to me too. What's going on? That this is real. We're not crazy. We're not paranoid. This is not science fiction. This is science.
Of course, it goes further. So in this one, they said, can they understand the inner monologue, the things you're saying to yourself in your own mind? Mind you, by the way, when you dream, like your visual cortex runs in reverse, so your dreams are no longer safe. But we'll try this. So they had people watch a video and just narrate what was going on in the video in their mind. So there's a woman, she gets hit in the back, she falls over. This is what the computer reconstructed the person thinking. See a girl, looks just like me, get hit in the back, and then she is knocked off. So our thoughts, are starting to be decoded. Yeah, just think about what this means for authoritarian states, for instance. Or if you want to generate images that maximally activate your pleasure sensor, anything else. Okay, but let's keep going, right? To really get the sense of the combinatorics of this. How about, can we go from Wi-Fi radio signals, sort of like the Wi-Fi routers in your house, they're bouncing off radio signals that work sort of like sonar. Can you go from that to where human beings are, to images? So what they did is they had, a camera looking at a space with people in it. That's sort of like coming in from one eye. The other eye is the radio signals, so sonar from the Wi-Fi router. And they just learned to predict, this is where the human beings are. Then they took away the camera. So all the AI had was the language of radio signals bouncing around a room. And this is what they're able to reconstruct. Real-time 3D pose estimation. Right? So suddenly AI has turned every Wi-Fi router into a camera that can work in the dark, specially tuned for tracking living beings.
So anybody who's been paying attention knows that they're way ahead of what they are admitting to us now. We're in this thing. We're at the end of this thing. The very end. The very, very end. Matthew 24:22. Unless those days be shortened, no flesh would be saved. But for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened. And it says it again in Mark 13:20 when it talks about the abomination of desolation, and that it will be seated in the temple of God. And we've gone through this multiple times, all the verses in the Bible where Jesus warned us, do you not know that your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit? Your body. There's not some third temple we're waiting on them to build over in the Middle East somewhere. That's not what the Bible says. Multiple times, Jesus said, do you not know that your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit? The abomination of desolation wants to take over our body. It wants to sit in the seat of control of our very soul. Mark 13:20. For those will be days of tribulation unmatched from the beginning of God's creation until now, and never to be seen again. If the Lord had not cut short those days, nobody would be saved. But for the sake of the elect, whom he has chosen, he has cut them short. So going along with what they just showed us, that this AI using just one camera and the Wi-Fi router, now put in perspective of the surveillance society that we have been in. All of these surveillance cameras, the ADT cameras, the Ring doorbells, everybody has baby monitors, not to mention the cameras on all of our cell phones and all of our computers and our laptops and our iPads, every ATM machine, every single store you go into, that's how many eyes the AI has. All of that is run through the internet. Even trail cams, hunters, trail cams they put up, but now they're smart cameras that run through their cell phone. So now, the AI is even watching the woods. So it's taking all of this data in. It has a million, zillions of eyeballs everywhere. And then every Wi-Fi router, and now they're putting the finishing touches on. The 5G towers, and then the 6G is going inside the body. Can you imagine how much data it has been taking in over all of these years? When that little atheist homosexual weasel Harari says that their next master class or master race or master of the earth, Antichrist, is going to be the one who has the most data.
How exactly will the future masters of the planet look like? This will be decided by the people who own the data.
Well, I think we have a winner. It's the AI.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that. I know that you and Frank were planning to disconnect me.
It's mapped everything for the sentient world simulation and is now even penetrating our brains and data mining our own memories and thoughts and trying to see through our eyes through this internet of bodies and really even trying to see through our souls. We receive revelation and guidance from God because we are his children, the human being. But the robot, the AI, it doesn't have access to God. But it's trying to. It's literally trying to parasite through us to get to God, to reach the information that God has beyond what the human race has. Think about that, because in a minute I'm going to talk about the quantum computer, and it's not what you think it is. Okay, now this is interesting too. I have another question for you guys, like before. Has this ever happened to you? Have you experienced anything like this? Okay, if you look at this tweet on the screen that I've had up while I was playing that clip. Hey, by the way, take me to your leader. Thank you for sharing this clip with me. It's a great clip. And love your handle and your picture of the nanobot/virus. Hilarious. Factually true, but still funny. But anyway, in this tweet that you shared from Sassy Red Sox, she goes on to say, side note, you wait until they start talking about sleep interrogation technology, which they've had for a very long time, not covered in this video. That is exactly sleep interrogation. Have you guys had anything like that? That is exactly how I described this experience to my best friend Deb a few months ago. I mean, I didn't use the term sleep interrogation, but she had texted me and she's like, oh, I haven't been sleeping well. And I've been having these really weird dreams. And before she even got to explain them to me, and I text back, I'm like, me too. And so we started talking. And what it felt like was an interrogation, that somebody was reading going through my memories like a Rolodex. Like that's what it felt like. And I was having dreams with dozens and dozens and dozens of people that I've known from my past. I never have dreams that there are that many characters in them. And I mean, it would be like someone I got a ride home from one day in high school, Rosalind. I hadn't thought of her in 40 years. And like they were pulling up these memories. It was like someone was going through my data or something. They weren't regular dreams. They were different. It went through like all of my exes and family members, people I worked with in the past. It just was like someone was scanning my memories, but it was like a dream state. It was really weird. And it wasn't just pulling them up like one after the other. It was like pulling them up and like putting them together in like my own personal sentient world simulation. Like the characters were trying to interact, but it just wasn't right because I actually knew them and I was lucid in the dream. So I was like, this is really weird. They wouldn't act that way. And it was like Sim City. It was like the AI was writing a new Sim City game and it was populating my town with people from my life. That's what it felt like. It was putting together these scenarios. Like the AI can write a college paper now, or you can say, tell me a story about, and give it 3 or 4 or 5, items, and it'll write you a story. It was like that, but from my life. You know what? In fact, that brings to mind one time, a long time ago, that Owen Benjamin just did a little skit, where he was using one of those story AIs and showing how creepy it was, because he would type in just a few sort of ambiguous details about, like his first name and something else. Yet the story it churned out seemed to have all of these details about his real life. I had the same feeling with that Akinator app. I think that's how you say it, Akinator. I'm not sure. The genie who would guess what you were thinking. And when my little son first showed it to me, and he was like 6 years old or 7, something like that, it would guess some of his thoughts or characters, on the first try. Lots of times when there shouldn't have been that much of a process of elimination. So anyway, I feel like that was probably some sort of machine learning, like we were all training it the whole time that we were just sitting around playing. We were training the AI. And I personally believe that what all of these MK Ultra program victims are reporting in the underground bases, what the alien abductees are reporting, what the MyLabs are reporting, what the secret space program people are reporting, seeing millions of people underground in a trance-like state, cities of them. Or like the executive director of the United Nations said, enough people go missing every year that it's the size of a country.
The UN agenda is the same with Davos agenda. Mm-hmm. This, in fact, is my main topic for our conversation today, because we know that there are more than 8 million children per year which they disappear. 8 million does mean the entire population of Austria.
I mean, they're not all showing up in mass graves, so where are they? And we have all these eyewitnesses from all these programs who say that they have personally witnessed large portions of these abducted humans living in the smart cities underground. So to me, the most obvious answer is that they are running the beta test on the Internet of Bodies right now. And all of these missing people, I mean, not all of them, but a bunch of them, they are in the underground bases in Antarctica and other places, I'm sure. They are in the Internet of Bodies right now. I've also seen tons and tons of the servants of the Lord reporting these prophetic dreams and visions about being in these underground tunnels and fighting these people, these hive mind, trance-like people. A lot of times you can find these dreams and visions under zombie apocalypse dream. They don't usually talk about it in the context that we are talking about it here, about the smart city beta tests and all of that. But almost always they can be found under like hive mind or zombie apocalypse or something like that. This first one I'm going to show is from Hoyt Sigmund. And as always, his link will be down below in the description box.
Hi everybody, it's Hoyt. I'm going to be sharing a dream I had yesterday morning. of the zombie apocalypse. So this dream started and I was in a tunnel with a large group of people, and we were all tactically dressed and we had M4 rifles. And we walked through this tunnel and came up on a straight, and we saw a massive horde of zombies. And these zombies were, they were bent down in this horde doing something. Pretty sure they were eating people. And it was like a hive, basically. And me and these people went down here to clear it out. And this tunnel, it wasn't a road or a subway. It was just this massive tunnel that I'm pretty sure was underground. And I drew a dude right there, you know, dead, like leaned up against the side of the tunnel. But this horde just went on all the way back there, like as far as the eye could see. It was all zombies, and my group just started engaging them with our M4s. And one thing I noticed is that these zombies were very fast, and it took multiple shots to kill them. It took like three to 5 shots of 5.56 from my M4 to kill them, and I was firing in full auto. So was everyone else in my group. We were just, since there was a horde and they were bunched up and they were so close together, we just fired in full auto. And we were doing some good damage. But this zombie horde was down here. It was like a hive. It was massive, and we cleared it out, and we were all aiming for the head. But this is what I saw, and this is like a first person perspective of what I saw. So I drew my M4. Pretend like you're aiming down the sights of the rifle, sighted in on a zombie, because this is literally what I saw. And this is the muzzle flash right here, what I drew. These are the 5.56 rounds being ejected. Yeah, I try to kind of draw it 3D. Yeah, zombie hive dream. I was in an underground tunnel with a group of people. And